I remember the day it all started, or at least the day I stopped being able to pretend it hadn't. It was just another Tuesday, I think, early afternoon. The New York skyline was bright, almost painfully so, outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse. Everything was neat. That's probably the best word for it. My life, my apartment, my portfolio. Neat. I was sitting in my custom-built office, the kind with the ridiculously large, perfectly clear monitor, glancing over some stock figures on my tablet. The numbers were good, of course. They usually were. I'd just hit delete on an email from some colleague, a link to a children's charity, something about kids in war zones. Absolute nonsense, if you ask me. I mean, honestly, those things are just excuses to siphon money. Everyone knows that. I chuckled softly, a dry, almost automatic sound, and shook my head a little. Sometimes, I swear, people just live in a different world, a very soft world. My finger swiped across the screen. A news channel loaded up. Nothing I paid much attention to, just background noise. Something about storm rescue efforts, people stranded. You know, the usual. Then the screen flickered. A quick, almost imperceptible flash. And in that tiny fraction of a second, the reflection that stared back at me wasn't my face. It was warped, emaciated. Cracked lines spread across it, like old porcelain about to shatter. The eyes, they were wide, full of a raw, desperate fear that made my stomach clench. It was gone before I could even properly register it. A blink, and it was just my own perfectly calm, middle-aged face staring back from the polished glass. "Huh, weird," I mumbled, rubbing my temples. Just the screen lighting, I guess. Or my eyes. Probably just tired. Yeah, that was it. Must have been staring at numbers too long. I needed a break. Later, I was in the kitchen. It's got these huge marble counters, spotless, and a faint smell of fresh coffee always hangs in the air. I was just doing my routine check of the smart home security system. All green lights. Every bulb in the place was on, bright. And then the big TV in the living room, the one you can see from the kitchen, just clicked. A faint, soft click. And it turned itself on. No sound, though, not at first. The picture was an old news report, I think. Something about a landslide, somewhere remote, nothing interesting. I frowned. I knew for a fact I had turned it off before I went into the kitchen. I picked up the remote, hit the power button. The screen went black, and then I heard it. A whisper, dry, like rustling leaves or old paper. Very, very faint. Right next to my ear, almost like someone had breathed it. It said, my name. Ethan. The voice was rough, choked, like it was fighting to get the sound out, like it was pleading. A faint, dusty smell drifted past my nose, musty, like old earth. Then it was gone. Just that clean smell of coffee again. System glitch, I guess, I said out loud, to no one. My voice sounded a little too loud in the quiet. That smell, probably the ventilation. I waved a hand in the air, tried to disperse it, even though it wasn't really there anymore, just a phantom. I felt a quick, cold shiver run down my arm. But it wasn't anything, nothing special, just a glitch. The confrontation, the real confrontation, happened while I was driving. I had a big meeting. A huge contract, actually. It would seal the deal on, well, let's just say it was going to be very profitable. I was flying down the highway, music on, windows barely cracked.
Just another beautiful, if slightly cold, New York day. Then I saw it. A car, not far off, pulled over to the shoulder. Old, rusting. The front tire was completely flat. And there was a woman, young, standing next to it, waving. Her face was pale, panicked. She was, clearly in distress. Long, curly hair, I remember that much. And a faint scar, a curved line, right there on her forehead. For a second, honestly, for one stupid, weak second, something in my chest, a dull ache I hadn't felt in years, just stirred. A tiny urge to pull over, to help her. But then I just pushed it down, hard, right down into that tight little ball in my gut. No time for this, I muttered to myself. That contract, it's too important. Way too important. I pressed the accelerator. Speed picked up. As I sped past her, I instinctively glanced in the rearview mirror. She was still there, still waving.
But her eyes, they weren't human. Not really. They were wide open, absolutely unblinking, milky white. No pupils, just white. And the scar? It wasn't a faint line anymore. It was a deep, jagged crack splitting her forehead. And something dark, thick, black, and greasy was oozing out of it. She didn't look alive. She didn't. And her arm? It seemed to stretch, unnaturally long, like an elastic band, reaching, almost touching my car window, just barely. I slammed on the gas. My foot hit the floor. The car surged forward, leaving her behind in a blur of gray highway. Just a fucking hallucination, I heard myself gasp. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. Lack of sleep, that's all. Just glare from the sun hitting the mirror at a weird angle. She just looked particular. I just imagined it. But even as I said it, the image was burned into my mind. Those eyes, that crack, the black ooze. Later, after the meeting, which, by the way, went perfectly, money sealed and delivered, I was back in the apartment. The memory of the woman, it nagged at me, like a loose thread on a perfectly tailored suit. I couldn't quite shake it off. I went into the bathroom, the cool, sterile light bouncing off the chrome and white tiles. Wanted to splash some cold water on my face, clear my head. I looked in the mirror. My reflection, it looked tired, more tired than usual. I raised my hand, planning to splash water. My reflection's hand moved, but it was just a fraction of a second slower than mine. A subtle, almost imperceptible delay. I blinked. My reflection's eyes stayed open for another moment, just a beat, before it blinked too. Then the reflection smiled. A wide, horrifying grin that stretched its mouth far too wide. But its lips didn't part. They stayed sealed. Only the corner of its mouth, on the right side, seemed to crinkle. A faint, barely visible crack appeared there. And as I stared horrified, it widened. Slowly, steadily. A thin, dark line, spreading, just like the ones on the woman's face. I recoiled, stepping back from the mirror. I couldn't help it. And as I did, the reflection's hand, the one that had followed mine so slowly, rose. Index finger pointed, straight down, to an old newspaper lying face down on the polished tile floor. I hadn't noticed it before. How did it even get there? My apartment was always neat. I looked at the paper. It was folded, but a headline was clearly visible. Big, bold letters. Young woman dies in Highway 17 accident, identity undetermined. My blood ran cold. The shiver wasn't just on my arm this time. It ran all the way down my spine, burrowing right into my bones. "No way," I whispered. My voice was suddenly hoarse. "No, it's not. It's not related to me. Just a random coincidence." I felt trapped, like the image in the mirror, the grotesque smile, was somehow me, part of me, yet separate. I needed to calm down. I just needed to calm down. I scrambled around the apartment, flicking on every light switch. Bright LEDs flooded every room. I went straight to the front door, checked the deadbolt, then the patio door, locked, all locked. I tried to find a logical explanation for everything. A series of unfortunate events, visual trickery, just anything but what my gut was screaming. But every logical explanation just made the fear worse. It felt flimsy, thin, like a sheet of ice stretching over a bottomless pit. I decided to watch TV, distract myself, something mindless. I grabbed the remote, my hand still trembling, pressed the power button. The news channel was still there. The screen went dark again, abruptly, not to black, but dead, just flat. And then a woman's voice, faint, distant, like it was coming from a long tunnel, but clear enough. "We've just received breaking news. The body of a man has been found." As the words hung in the air, I looked at the dark wood coffee table in front of me. Just for a second, a small, cross-shaped indentation appeared, pressed into the wood, as if something sharp and heavy had just pushed down. It actually sank like hot wax. And then, just as quickly, it was gone. The wood was smooth again, not a mark. The TV voice continued, a monotone drone now, "Where he had been left behind." I just sat there, frozen. After a few more minutes of that, no, I don't even know how long it was. Time seemed to stretch and warp like a bad signal. I turned off the TV, switched it off entirely. No more news, just silence. I ordered a burger through an app on my phone. My favorite, double patty, extra cheese, fries on the side. The app usually has a prompt, to donate $1 or $2 to a fund for delivery drivers or something. I always swipe past it. Why bother? They do their job, they get paid. Simple. I was maybe halfway through the burger, the grease and salt doing their best to soothe the buzzing in my head. And then I heard it, a knock, from my study. My study door was closed, always. I live alone. I frowned. A piece of lettuce caught on my lip. The knocking was regular, gentle, but firm, like knuckles on wood. Tap, tap, tap. I put the burger down. Cold dread prickled my skin. I walked slowly to the study door, my feet dragging a little on the polished floorboards. My hand reached for the doorknob. Cold. I twisted it, pulled the door open. Nothing. Just the empty room. My desk, my bookshelves, all neat, pristine. But on the floor, near the wall opposite the door, a pencil rolled, slowly, as if it had just been flung from somewhere, or knocked off a table. But it was far from anything, just rolling. "Just the wind," I muttered, though no window was open in the study. I bent down, picked up the pencil. It felt normal, just a pencil. I shrugged, a quick, dismissive gesture that felt forced. I walked back to the living room, tried to resume my burger, picked up the remote again, switched to a comedy show. Anything to get rid of this feeling, this unease. The comedy show, it started fine. Laugh track, silly jokes. I tried to focus. Then the screen started to static, just a little at first, like bad reception. Then the images pixelated. The sound went distorted. Through the white noise, a child's voice, sobbing, desperate. And then a man's voice, loud, harsh, garbled, but the words were clear enough. "Why won't you help? Why won't you just help?" I jumped. The burger, still half-eaten, clattered on the coffee table. I grabbed the remote, frantic, started mashing the channel buttons. Nothing. Every channel. Just static. And through the static, those whispers again. The child crying. The man yelling. A faint, unmistakable smell of decay wafted through the air. Like something old. Something dead. And then, it was gone. Swallowed by the sterile air. A cold draft, sharp and biting, swept past my shoulder. I shivered, hard. The AC was set to a comfortable 72 degrees. It never fluctuated. I stood up. My hands were shaking now, visibly. The unease, it wasn't just a prickle anymore. It was a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Irritation, yes, annoyance, but also something else, something sharp. I turned off the TV, completely. The screen went black, mercifully silent. I tried to ignore the thoughts racing through my head, swirling like dark water. I went to the kitchen. My hands were still trembling as I put the kettle on for some hot tea. Calming. That's what I needed. Calm. I tried to rationalize it all again. Noise pollution, bad wiring, too much caffeine. But my eyes, they kept darting around the room, searching. For what? I didn't know. Then my phone buzzed. A video call. From my mother. She's old, frail, in a nursing home now. I answered. "Hi, Mom." I tried to sound cheerful, normal. Her face, wrinkled but still sweet, filled the screen. She was smiling, chatty as always, telling me about the other residents, the terrible food. Her eyes, they were still warm, full of that gentle, unconditional love that had always, well, that had always been there. But as she spoke, something shifted. Her face twitched, minutely. A small crack, almost like a hairline fracture in old porcelain, appeared on her right cheek. Just for a second. Then it was gone. The call quality started to drop. Her image flickered, distorted. She continued talking, oblivious. I forced myself to stare, to not react, to act cold, casual. "Mom, I have a meeting right now," I said, my voice sounding rushed, even to my own ears. "You know, something important. I gotta go. Talk later, okay?" She smiled again, a slow, gentle smile. But her eyes, they went vacant, suddenly blank, like someone had just switched them off. "All right, son," she said, her voice soft, far away. "I know you're busy. You always have more important things." The video call disconnected. Just like that.